All right, welcome to the NextWaveDV podcast. I'm Tony Reale.
I'm Ben Carlson.
And we have a special guest today.
Ryan Hopson.
And Ryan, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I am the director of sales for Green Bay Blizzard Indoor Football.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, we've worked with you for quite a while now and known each other even outside of just our working relationship. Yeah. One thing that we have kind of an advantage in our production company and owning a virtual reality arcade is a lot of, having the production company, most of the services we offer are B2B.
Yep.
So it's not that we can, doing regular traditional marketing across like social media and that kind of stuff, there's a very small percentage of a percentage of that is our ideal customer base. So, but for the arcade, everybody's a customer.
Yes.
So what we've done is we've worked with a lot of companies like yourself where we can trade out services for Creative Edge, and then you help us advertise for the arcade. So it's been a really great relationship. We've done video work for you, and we're going to be doing even more stuff coming up. So you popped in this morning, and you're like, hey, I got another thing that we could have you work on. And they were like, hey, while you're here.
Yes.
Have a seat.
I did. Yeah. Creative Edge will be a big part of the Blizzard family now.
That's exciting. We are excited to be a part of it.
So yeah, today we're going to talk about, just frankly, marketing and sales and what it's like working in the environment that you guys work in. We have a location-based entertainment venue, and so we're familiar with that. But you guys are doing specific events, with a very specific target range. So I think it would be really fascinating for our listeners to hear just the challenges that you guys face and how do you stay relevant year after year. As people change, as markets change.
Absolutely. That's the part where I say something.
Yeah, okay. Ideally, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. At the end of the day, I think there's so many things that families and people can do with their entertainment dollars. So that's a constantly evolving thing, the word marketing, right? So on any given Friday night, going to a Blizzard game is competing with Marcus Theaters, that's Robert on Lanes, Edge VR Arcade, right? Not that I ever want somebody to come to a game instead of their arcade, but I do, right? So how you present yourself when everybody can spend $12 to do a thing or go out and do that is really different. And you have to be different. We always say we're more than football.
Sure.
There absolutely is football. We would not exist without football. And at the end of the day, it's our core product. But so we've evolved over the years, different theme nights. And much like you guys, I am a huge movie goer, pop culture guy. So we run Heroes and Villains, Kids Laser Show Night, you name it. But you have to give them more than what your core thing is, I think, in value and in marketing. So,
I was going to ask you, when you guys do those different pop culture nights, what's the licensing for that? Like,
will this be recorded? Yes. So I think you see it unique across different teams. So when we ran Star Wars Night a couple seasons ago, I went through the proper process and I signed paperwork. And there were some crazy things like you had to, if you altered a game jersey like the Timber Rattlers do, you actually had to send some to, was it Skywalker Ranch? Is that the?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you had to send them because they keep versions of your themed jerseys in there apparently. We didn't change the jersey. We ran a green lightsaber. We played by the rules, and I'll say that's the right thing to do because Disney will run small businesses out of town if you don't play by the rules.
For sure.
But I felt like I was a little bit handcuffed too because all the stuff I wanted to do, like we modified our mascot logo to be Darth Maul and a Jedi version of Bruiser. And I don't even think I had already ordered the green lightsabers, but I'm pretty sure it said no lightsabers. But we were off to the races. But our bases were covered if we would have done anything like that. Now, when it comes to superhero and villains ones, where Kathy and I costume up a lot, Kathy is the Green Bay Blizzard owner, we don't outright say it's like this coming season, and we've announced this, so there's no spoiler here. So March 31st, because it's right around Shazam 2, Ant-Man Quantumania, and then we're catching Guardians Vol 3. We're running Superhero and Villains Night Vol 2 because we're going to catch sequels of a lot of those movies, but we don't outright and say it's Guardians of the Galaxy Night. It's Superhero and Villains Night, come in costume. Now, I know from talking to my friends at the Timber Rattlers, like even when you navigate Minions or some of that Illumination properties, I think, you do have to fill out paperwork for that. They benefit because they have the MLB umbrella protecting them too, and MLB has all those deals.
Sure,
like they can run Star Wars Night all day long. Specifically with Star Wars Night, because I had a game that fell on May 4th in 2017 or 2018. I did the paperwork. But my other ones, we do superheroes and villains
Sure.
and call it a blanket as much as we can,
Yeah. Sure.
right? Like,
Yeah.
because I know after I saw the trailer hit, I was like, boy, I should have run Indiana Jones night, but it's past my season that I didn't. But yeah, when we outright called it Star Wars night, I did due diligence. Otherwise, we just run a blanket. You can dress as a superhero or villain night, if that answers the question.
Yeah, because I've seen like sometimes for like instead of Harry Potter, they'll do wizarding.
Yes. Yeah.
Like,
Right. Yep. And if actually my counterpart at another team in town, he has said if you just add Palooza after, like Minion Palooza, you can get away with it. It's not Minion night. So like maybe I'll run a Palooza night.
Does that make it does it kind of fall under the parody of it?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Yep.
What was
I mean,
that?
because they'll run Princesses Night too, but they didn't say Disney Princesses, and
Sure.
I think that's the okay loophole.
Yeah.
Who was the guy that did like the Starbucks where he was like,
Dumb Starbucks.
Yeah,
Oh gosh, not Nate. Alex? No. I'm going to look that up.
all right, leave a comment in the video. If you want.
And he has a new show, and we can get to this later on in the segment, but he has a new show where it's Nate. I'm pretty sure it's Nate. Super dry, a comedy. And in the Starbucks one, he was just trying to help local businesses do better through crazy schemes. And one of them was Dumb Starbucks. And the Starbucks pitched a fit.
Yeah.
Because he had the logo that was darn near it. Everything. He made the whole coffee shop look like a Starbucks. But because he put dumb in front of it, it was a parody. They couldn't touch him.
So I will say when I signed all that paperwork, it did allow me to use the logo and other stuff that probably would have sent up a flag and said, hey, Disney, run after these guys. They're in trouble had I not done it.
Yeah.
But like it did allow me to do a lot of that stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Are there any limitations you run into with like marketing content, like for music or, like you mentioned logos? And is there any difference between what you can do at the event versus like the marketing material that you share on social media?
Sure. I probably play by the same rules you guys do when it comes to social media generally. Like we ran We Will Rock You we did public safety night, and we had light up red and blue BAM sticks.
Nice.
And we actually had 3 chief of polices in, and we made it look like, another video you guys look to do in the future, by the way.
Yeah.
We made it look like we were disturbing the peace in the Blizzard office and like legit with a squad car pulled up and everything. Video was incredible because of the music got pulled when we aired it on social media.
Yeah.
In the arena, it's different because we sign all of your ASCAP, BMI, whatever licenses that allow us to run video board content, audio content that were covered when it's in the building.
Sure.
Was a different thing when I ran the Star Wars music, but I proved I had the paperwork there too. So there are some, we'll say way less drastic than we do a theme night limitation. So when I play at the Resch Center, I'm a tenant of the Resch Center, right? Unlike the Gamblers who are owned by PMI Entertainment, like I am a tenant. So there are big building sponsors that I'm not allowed to go get a conflicting sponsor for, right?
Sure.
It's a Bud Light building. I can't go get and advertise another beverage company, or it's a Pepsi building now, so I couldn't put a Coca-Cola logo on a board in a Pepsi building.
Sure.
Right now, if it's a giveaway for that night, I absolutely could go talk to somebody like that and say it's leaving the building. It's not permanent signage. At the same time, I mean, you guys know from just how you've treated me in the time I've known you and from any of your other clients, like we want to be a good partner. I need the Resch Center to play, so my goal is not to tick off any of those partners.
Right.
My goal is to work with them.
Yeah.
So they're the one that does that thing. So yeah.
How do you find navigate? I know I had a friend who she worked. This was down in Texas, and she brought, or someone on her team brought, was it an Aquafina bottle to Coke or to Pepsi? She brought the competing water bottle. It wasn't like she brought a Pepsi into Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
It was the competing waters.
Sure. Dasani, probably.
It was one of those, and it was, they went like DEFCON 3, where it was like, you cannot have that in here. Right. And like, think of like Monsters Inc., where it was like, they had brought out the decontamination center. And so how do you navigate that? I mean, because here we have food and beverage, and we do a lot with music, and I think copyright would be more, but how do you manage that? Do you have a team that does it, or does that fall on you?
It's me. So we used to joke my business card says director of sales, but besides signing players, it has been my job for 9 years. Just call it keep the Blizzard around with the Trinklers. And and relationships are everything. I'm usually an ask, not do, and then hope, whatever that cliche saying is. Ask forgiveness later.
Yeah.
The Blizzard had done some, and even when I met you guys, we weren't great in the community before the Trinklers bought it. We weren't at schools engaging with kids. We weren't out doing stuff like the VR arcade and just engaging. And it was called sponsorship, and that's the industry term when you sponsor and put your logo on stuff. We've changed it to partnership because it has to be a two-way street. So my bank calls, and I know the Rush Center has Nicolay Bank. I usually go talk to both the Rush Center and Nicolay Bank and say, listen, they called. Worth a conversation, or does it conflict? Would you guys be interested in doing it? So I don't even have to continue the conversation, and just be real with a lot of partners and sponsors, the technical term, want the Blizzard to remain healthy and exist. So there's good, healthy conversations there. And I walked away from some deals because it was going to burn too many bridges or be too much to navigate. And let's say there was another VR arcade in town, right? Like, how would that make you feel if I brought another one in? And I don't want 66 signs around the field advertising the same brand too. So we're just careful how we do that.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
When how do you, and you don't have to give us all the secret sauce necessarily, but obviously you've got sponsorship, you've got ticket revenue sales. Like, what are the different revenue streams that you guys look towards, and how do you kind of break that down to make sure that one isn't suddenly have a gaping hole for?
Sure. There's basically, I say four big buckets we play in. So sponsorships, ticket sales, merchandise, and then game day. And game day could fall in the merchandise, but like when people come to the Rush and spend there's a different financial equation of, if the Rush Center's packed, obviously we're doing pretty good and they're doing pretty good. And they kind of all play hand in hand, right? Like I look at 9 years ago when I got involved, and it was like 1,500. Fast forward to pre-COVID, 4,900 a game, and then post-COVID, getting back to 4,500 a game. One can't function without the other. So how do you maintain them all? It's a tricky question, right? Because your Edge VR arcade, and I'm saying, hey, spend $20,000 with the Blizzard, and you go and there's 1,500 people in the building.
Sure.
Like, that's not something you're going to do, right? So we had to fix the people in the building in order for me to attract the Edge VR arcades and say, it's now worth it to be partnering with us outside of the feel good and all the stuff that makes the Blizzard. It's now marketing worth it because we have a captive audience of people that would play in the arcade because it is family friendly. So we really, it's been awesome with attendance because it allows, and as we've got more pieces of the front office in play, as we've increased attendance, I'll now get somebody they want to meet with next season and just go sit with them at a game and enjoy the game and say, hey, what do you think of being part of this next season? And it's cool to show off when you have 4,000 and 7,000 in the building on Laser Show night versus don't come in June because you're 1,500, right? Like, that's just the reality of it. But I've had to hopefully answer that question. Like, none of them can function without, we had to fix people in the building and show we were different in the community to get people back in the building. Because again, who they were before the Trinklers bought the team, in order to get where we now are in partner land. And now companies are proud when they see their board there, even if, to your point, we have a lot of companies that advertise on our dashboards who are B2B. And it's not necessarily because I can go buy something from Bayland Buildings, for instance, right? But when they have their company night there, that matters to their employees that they support local. And I didn't process that, right? I went to companies like who are B2B, and I just was hard selling company nights. And they're like, well, why wouldn't you ever offer us a dashboard? I'm like, I can't go buy a Bayland Building. Why would you want a dashboard? And like, well, we're proud to support you, and that matters to our employees when they use the tickets and come. So it was just a focus shift for me too, that I include that stuff. And, but I mean, long answer to that, like, all sponsorship is the largest dollars in, but not possible with the rest of them that don't feed that machine now. And both in YouTube views of the games, because the games stream on YouTube. So when it comes to running ads on YouTube and the different stuff, just, you can see that on YouTube, right? There are 900 people in there. You're like, oh, well, we're not writing that check. Like, you're like, what happened? So.
Well, let's talk about that distribution. I mean, that's got to have changed a ton over the years. Like, were you guys on like network or cable at any point in the past?
Before my start, what was that? Time Warner 32. Was that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or wasn't there something 9? I always just watch Deep Space Nine or something on it. There was something else in town too. They're the off channel channels.
Sure.
So so it'll be 20 seasons of Blizzard football this year. My employers, the Trinklers, have owned 10. So before them, some of the prior groups really thought that when we were on TV locally, it would stop people from coming to the game. Because like, I'll just watch it on TV instead of buy a ticket. So that was just the mentality that existed. When I got involved, it was another sports-specific streaming service that you had to pay $10 to be a part of. So at that point, it was cool because more people would gather, like if we hosted a view party at a sports bar, because they didn't want to pay the subscription and they'd come hang out with us. I want to say we're 3 years into the YouTube deal for the league now, and now it's just free on YouTube where viewership's way up. Less people at the view party because if you're driving from 40 minutes, you probably just throw it on your big screen versus hang out at a sports bar with the front office staff. But we're a good time. Come out to the sports bar.
All right, shameless plug. Where you guys meet?
So normally Replay Sports Bar will be 3 this year. So depending on the way game, it's Replay Sports Bar, Little Jamaica, and TNT Sports Bar and Grill.
Nice. Okay.
And we're thinking of theming the one at Little Jamaica. So it'll be Jamaica-esque. So they do have a bobsled team. So that's shifted in who hangs out with us, but way more viewership, right? And you can see in the zip codes and just fans commenting when the game's live, like who is watching, right? So some of the diehard indoor football teams like Arizona, you'll see that viewership spike, but it's a lot of Arizona codes. And I just make sure when I go to my Edge VRs, I say, hey, listen, we can run a YouTube ad, but realize that's not necessarily a bunch of Fox Valley Green Bay folks. That's a lot of visiting teams catching their team as well. But it has opened the door to both league inventory with YouTube ad space and just a different avenue that didn't exist before when we were at it wasn't one of the big platforms. It wasn't YouTube, Prime, Twitch, you name it. It was a offshoot one that streamed sports teams.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how marketing has shifted and changed over the past 10 years.
Sure.
For what you're trying to do. We're in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Green Bay, Wisconsin is known for another football team.
Oh, got that one wrong.
Wait, we have 2?
I got voted off the island.
There's not just a Blizzard.
Correct.
Oh wow.
So obviously there's an infrastructure that's set up here because of Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Can I even say that?
I don't know. Just don't tag them.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure that having that infrastructure benefits the Blizzard in and of itself. But what are the advantages and disadvantages of being in an area that has such a dominant brand for football?
No disadvantage, but more of a myth, and you kind of hit it on the head there. So I'll go sit at league meetings and stuff, and when we had kids' night with a laser show last year, it was sold out first time in say 11 years the Blizzard have done that, probably actually further than that. One of the loudest events the Resch Center has had in regards to sporting events at the Resch.
Nice.
When we go share that with the league, there's a lot of it's easy for you guys. You get people in because the Packers, and it's not a football town. It is a Packer town. And you see that in Blizzard football. Gamblers, T-Rats, Rockers, right? Like we all have
all of our minor
grind
leagues.
it out to sell. It's not a. 60,000 just don't naturally walk over from Lambeau because we're the other football team in town. On the contrary, in order to get people to understand that it's not gimmicky, our athletes are tremendous, it's a really cool product, player goes over the wall, you keep it, it's right in your face, and you guys are going to a game.
Yeah.
We needed to use some of the really cool, the show and entertainment piece of what we do to get them in, and then they're like, holy cow, this is good football on top of the cool stuff they did, right?
Yeah.
And it's really been a challenging and a mindset shift, right? In how we advertise, when you ask the marketing question, right, we'll show some of those high impact images of a guy going over the board, plus the kid catching a football and keeping it, and the theatric stuff, because we know it's going to appeal to the family on 4 as much of the football thing, who may not be able to afford to cross the street and go to Lambeau too. So it's advantageous because you're right. There's a championship football culture in Green Bay, but it is a lot of disadvantage. It's not a disadvantage in the question there. It's just it's not what everybody thinks it is, right? That I'm going to run a ton of season ticket ads or just jam. We're the other football team in town in front of them in an ad. It's really focusing on the family having fun and being so affordable.
Well, I
Because
think
we get that a lot at the league level. We're really like, oh, that's easy, Ryan. You got 7,000 because you're across the street. We're literally across the street from Lambeau. And it's not. Like, that was 4,000 school kids in attendance that night that we worked at, and we're in the classrooms and reading. And that's an advantage, right? Because we're smaller is the wrong word, but we can do a lot more things without it costing a school or being a huge process to navigate. And the Packers are incredible in the community, but we can do a lot without the red tape, right? We can go read in classrooms, play at recess without really running it by the league or anything.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's, I think, and this is something I wanted to bring up. When I was living down in Texas, people would often ask, why the Packers? They would be asked, are you a Cowboys fan yet? No, I grew up a mile away from the stadium. I went to school with the Packers kids. You see Mark Tauscher, our offensive lineman in Barnes and Noble perusing the books. I mean, it's
or even Amon Green's a big friend of
Cade,
and we worked with him many times.
And prior owner of the Blizzard before my time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you have the Packers are such a part of the city, and I think you nailed it on the head. Green Bay is not a football town per se. We love football, the high school teams and all that, but we are a Packer town.
Yeah.
And I think that's because the Packers are so integrated with the community, literally. And what I think that I've noticed, especially in the past couple years since moving back, is the Blizzard are now present just about any time there's a community event. You're seeing the Blizzard out there. And it's so cool because, like, for my 4-year-old, she sees a football player. She doesn't care if they're the Packers or not. Right. She sees these superheroes. And I think it's just such a neat shift, and I think you guys have done a great job. And could you talk a little bit about how you've gotten involved in the community? I know you talked a little about it in schools, but like, what are you doing in the community to get not just the Blizzard name out there, but the actual players, and to get fans here as invested as they are into the Packers?
Yeah. Kudos to the staff. I've done it for 9 years, and I'm in the current version of the front office. I'm the only one that's been there that whole time that the Shrinkers have owned too. But like, kudos to the current staff to do a lot of the community appearance stuff, like some of the farmers market and stuff. And we're really showing up in the public eye last year was a lot because we've increased attendance, not because Ryan Hopson wrote a book on indoor football. It's just I've studied what other people have done.
Sure.
And I don't have any answers, right? I'm a huge my staff do their own thing and come up with the ideas, right? Now the school thing, I figured out from the get-go, because before I was responsible for everything, like some of the cool stuff we do now with video and the arcade and stuff, my niche was just sponsorships and ticket sales, not the overarching whole Blizzard like it is now. So I used to, really early on, I'm not even kidding, I'd go to the schools that I knew had done stuff with the Blizzard before, and then while I was in the neighborhood, I'd try and catch another one, right? If you're out in Howard, or try and get all the elementary schools. And then I would literally drive unannounced, knock on the door before COVID, and now you have to have a background check, blood sample, shoe size to get into a school. And really just introduce myself and say, I'd leverage the other school. I'd say, hey, school on the road's involved. And again, you'd have to prove you're different, right? Because whether it's any of the other fundraisers for bands or sports or anything, like, yes, there's a fundraising element, but there's hey, come have a good time, and we're dirt cheap. But as a principal, like, Tony, you'd probably be hit up for no less than 20 fundraisers in a year, right? And to say, hey, the Blizzard's another one. So yes, we do a kickback, but that's not what we lead with, right? We get the kids on the field for the fan tunnel, or do the national anthem, or hey, let's bring the players out and read and engage. And I'll tell you, that's just on the sales side and the business side, it's just shifted. Once you're into one, and then you get a principal being a big advocate to you, to their peers in the area or the district, like, I mean, we, of that 7,000 at Laser Show, I want to say 1,000 of them were Howard Swamico kids, because that domino fell, and I'm doing one, I'm going to outsell this school, we want to be involved in this piece. But again, it all started just trying to walk in and undo what had been done and just say, hey, we're different. Sure. Give us a shot to be different. Yeah. We want to help these young men. So I think a key way to answer your question too, on the player side, right? When you're your measurables, when you're as fast, as strong, as the guy playing on Sunday in the NFL, and you want to take his spot, if you don't think the things you do in the community and your personal brand matters, you are gravely mistaken, right?
Oh, that's good.
If you are on paper the same as the guy playing on Sunday, the other stuff you do will matter.
Sure.
And we really want to try and help the players get out there and have a portfolio that says, I engaged in the school, I love the community. And because at the football side, that's why the league exists, is to help these young men get up and out, whether that's XFL, CFL, NFL. That's the goal. Indoor football is not a career. Now, you can love it, and if that's what you want to do and make it your NFL, we absolutely have had players like that.
Sure.
They're great. They become local guys. They're around in the community, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But at its core, we want to help them get film and get them up and out. And when someone calls and they're like, how was that guy in the community? You don't want to be like, well, we took a call this one time. We want to be like, he was the guy in every classroom reading. So, yeah.
Nice.
You talk about personal brand, and we've been talking a lot about this on our on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, all our channels, about the importance of it's the being seen, just your familiarity, the mere exposure effect of being. The more somebody sees your face, your brand, your identity, the more comfortable, the more familiar they become, and that just becomes it's a positive.
Yeah.
And so, do you guys work with your players in that aspect of do you give them any guidance on how to take advantage of social media or other platforms?
I probably say find someone young. I call TikTok TikTok, but I have again the set of social media interns and Selena in our office who does our social media. It's just they just understand those platforms more. Like we'll do some TikTok stuff last year. I'm like, why the heck we do that? And then I watch the views and interactions. I'm like, okay, you guys are right. Don't even ask me to do this anymore. Just do it. But yeah, because of how much we've talked family friendly and just how the Blizzard is different on here too, we have to scrub, for lack of a better word. We have to check those profiles out. We have to talk and ask the players, hey, if you want us to tag us or help build your personal brand, you got to make sure that stuff's clean.
Sure.
You're pointing kids your way.
Yeah.
Yes, we provide guidance in a way, and we're trying to do better, right? Because NIL, name, image, likeness stuff has changed the NCAA. So we're just trying to help them build their brand, and there's a good way to make a living doing that stuff too, even after football.
Sure.
Or social media influencers, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we can mention them and at them and include them in what we do. We try and help just provide guidance, and some of them are incredible at it. They have an entire following and brand before they even come in too.
Yeah.
All of those young men, different business ventures, whether it's clothing or health and fitness or whatever we can do to help, even outside of transitioning to football. And I think that's what makes the Blizzard owners different. Is it may not be your career, right? But if we can hopefully give you some life skills on the way out, if it's time to hang up the cleats, that's what we want to do as well. So
Sure, that's great.
Are your players, is this their main gig or do they do other things?
Really depends. So as a team, without unpacking the complete financials, as a team, you're both allowed and responsible for. So team housing, meal plan, a lot of what we do here, entertainment stuff. Because outside of your cell phone bill and play money, we don't want you to have to. You don't get paid a ton to play indoor football. Right?
Sure.
That's the reality of it. That's why it's developmental league to try and make the next step. So some guys will get a job in town. We do help with some of our corporate partners. We're just really careful because you guys are my relationship,
Sure.
and my job is to protect you, even in regards with our players, right?
Right.
So we're just careful on who we place employment-wise with our partners. Some of them will just come play football for 5 months, and it really depends on I'm good with the meal plan the Blizzard provided. I don't need to pick up a job. Some of them will. Just depends on where they're at in their football journey.
Sure.
So, yep.
Sure. Cool.
Now, one thing that going back a little bit, the thing that I learned in interacting with you and really understanding what your brand is that you're not a sports team. You're a family entertainment business.
Yeah.
And
Kathy Trinkler will love you for saying that.
But
Kathy Trinkler might
very
fight
true,
you.
yeah.
But I think that's important in understanding what is your brand, because
Yep.
I think if you lose yourself in the idea that you're a sports team when that isn't your core demographic, to your earlier point of saying Green Bay is a Packer town more than it is a football town. So you don't have just direct crossover with the Packer brand because that isn't really what people go to the game for as much. They go to the game because
Experience.
they go to the temple
Yep.
of the Packers.
Yeah.
So people don't just cross over into coming to the Blizzard game because they just want to see more football.
Yeah.
They come there because of that experience. Again, when you're doing all those theme nights and all, it's more about the football is one of the things that you're there to experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you guys do the same in how you position yourself. Like you have to be different because everybody's doing it. And give them something. You get season ticket holders and flex to become that once someone comes to a game. You do something like the laser show and you'd be like, man, I wonder what the heck they're going to do next game. Or we made it snow at the home opener last year, and it'll snow again this year too with snow machines rigged up. You want them to wonder what happens next, and then eventually they're like, yeah, number 5 was at my school reading a book, and they latch on a player to become. So it's not at the expense, and it's not doable without football. Yeah. It's just you have to do the other stuff, right? They want more than that for $12.
Yeah.
So,
So with the idea that you are a family entertainment business, how important are win-losses?
So I'm going to answer this carefully so I keep my job. It's important, right? So it does not drive attendance. It helps attendance. So I'm going to get it wrong, and Coach watches this. I'll probably get yelled at. But I think we were 0-4 or 1-4 going into the sold-out laser show kids night, and there were 7,000 attendance, right? Yeah. Now, you get blown out at that game with 7 attendance, it affects, right? It affects the people who came for football. And season ticket holders, it matters to us whether they come to the next one. Yeah, the theatrics are cool, but that was some rough football. We have and always have been competitive. It's not blowout football, and it's so high paced that it's really, you can score and come back at any time.
Yeah.
Absolutely is important because I think it helps build the love of football within what we do. But it's not the determining factor in whether somebody comes. And I think that's true for gamblers too. Yeah. I mean, look at some of the themes that T-Rats and the gamblers do, and they have to plan 30 games.
Yeah.
I have to navigate 7 or 8, which is awesome and terribly scary in the fact that, like, I can't just run Minion Palooza. And I'm not saying it's a throwaway theme, but if I don't get it right at one of 8, when you asked about the revenue streams, we have a problem.
Sure.
So, yep.
Yeah. You know, go ahead.
You go ahead.
You go ahead.
I'll go ahead. One of the things that we've talked about and kind of been dissecting recently, Tony and I went to a Packer game with our wives, and it was freezing, it was snowing, and it was perfect. Because it was going to the Holy Shrine of Lambeau, and it
in the elements.
And so we were like, what draws 78,000 people to sit in the frigid cold? Like you couldn't get people to stand in line.
Right.
I mean, I guess, for Black Friday, you might get some people that are diehards, but not 78,000 people sitting in the elements, freezing, just sitting, watching sports.
Yep.
And so we said, taking that broader is how do businesses, how do companies, how do you make fans out of your customers? Yep. And I think that's something that you guys are doing a really great job of is, taking the step back and saying, all right, this isn't just about the football.
Yep.
How do we create a fan experience? How do we, and you're attacking it from so many different levels. And I think that's a great lesson for any company out there that's saying, how do we drive engagement? Well, it's not just, we'll be here, we'll do some TikToks and we'll be on the YouTubes. It's no, where are you meeting your customers really? And how are you engaging those customers to become fans of your brand, fans of your company, and really know who you are, so you do become a household name. And I think you guys are doing a great job of that.
Appreciate that.
And you're seeing it through, like you said, the attendance is going up. And it's accessible. I think there is something that's so unique about. If you haven't been to an arena football game, it is unlike any other. It's high school. Especially living down in Texas and Wisconsin, high school is great. And Friday night lights, it is really a thing. And so high school football, college football, we have Madison. They have great games. But there is something different about being inside the arena and having
from me to you,
having players jumping over, smashing. You kind of almost have like the energy of a hockey check with football, and so it's a great way. You are literally engaging with your customers to become fans because they sometimes fall right in the lap. So I think that's just what you guys are doing is such a great example for any business out there scratching their head. What can we do?
Right.
Just do like the Blizzard do.
Well, I think you prompted something that Tony, I went off tangent when you said a second ago too. Like even as Edge VR Arcade, right? There is can't even count them on hands and toes on how many people try and get you to spend your marketing dollar, right? Whether it's TV, radio. You can't spend 7,000 people in the building. You have to engage them differently, right? Yeah. So how we do that and what we show, when we partner, and when we find the right one to partner, like I get it. I mean, and they know WIXX is the most expensive game in town when it comes to radio, but because they have families listening, people are like, well, Ryan, why not run more stuff on the fan? You get a guy in the party pit, sometimes the fan who's checking it out, where you get as a family of 4, right? And just knowing your audience and how you engage them and what that ad sounds like. Yeah, there's football effects and stuff on there, but it's, hey, $2 dog, $2 soda night, youth jersey for free. Like there's all this stuff with the football, and it's really how you use the key word there, how you engage. And I know from just talking to you guys and mutual media partners or marketing people we worked with in the community, it's really important that finding the right one to understand your brand, right? There's a reason I'm sitting here today, and the stuff we talked about before we got on air is you are a group we want to partner with, and we want stuff to look and feel like you guys, because we want people like, oh yeah, Edge is the place that partners with the Blizzard. I know on Tuesday night, if I win a game, I get tickets to it, right? You want a partnership, not I saw the Edge logo on a dashboard. Like, what good does that do anybody besides maybe looking you guys up versus, dude, there was a 300-pound Blizzard lineman falling off an elevator thing in VR, right? Like,
right.
It's how you engage, not how you make a marketing spend. And I think that's really changed, right? You used to be able to, I mean, rewind where someone before me sat in the marketing chair for the Blizzard probably could just throw money at TV and different things. It's changed. You have to engage in a different way.
Right, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do too with, like, you know, the way things were in the past. There was this high level of separation between media and consumer. You know, like whether it would be the news or TV programming or whatever like that. And now the barriers have dropped down to that, like, I can TikTok a celebrity and may or may not respond, but like there is no barrier. There isn't like, you know, back in the 60s, 70s, whatever like that, if you wanted to get a hold of somebody, you'd have to maybe stalk them if you're lucky. You know, it's just interesting how, and so because of that, that's the expectation that people have, the migration that we've gone through of like, it isn't just, that's smart business. It's, no, that's what a consumer expects. And if you're not doing that, then you're completely failing them as an audience. So, you know, you guys have like your shows and you have your social media content. Like, what are the avenues that you keep a consistent engagement, like especially during COVID when you guys weren't able to?
Yeah, our show, I mean, and anybody watching this who is a Blizzard follower too will know that will change and things may look familiar here soon. We developed a show that's now called Strictly Business that Kathy Trinkler, Blizzard owner, and I just wanted to check in with fans after essentially the 2020 season got yanked from them, right? So we'd check in on game day from our respective homes and just say, hey, kickoff would have been right about now. So it kind of had a meh feeling, but it was cool. It also allowed in, there's a lot of questions how the indoor football works, right? Like, why don't you pay the players more? Why don't you make a bid at that star player? Or how does it work to sponsor? Or right. So like this evolved into Kathy and I being able to, sometimes in a way that gets us in trouble, pull back the curtain of indoor football and really share with fans why we made a decision or why that theme night. I got lambasted. Is that the right word?
Great word.
So one year I had a game on May 4th and I didn't run Star Wars night. And because we had built this following of people expecting us to do a superhero or pop culture night, I ran Heroes night because I wasn't going to sign the Disney paperwork again, truthfully, that you asked that question. They're like, why didn't you? I'm like, we're running Heroes night. There was a Marvel movie that came out. I forget which one it was. But like, it just, you know, like it allowed us to stay connected, right? And the followers have increased, and people from other teams and other markets. And hey, we got people from Arizona who follow the Rattlers in the league that chime in. This is really cool to understand what's going on at the league, not just with Rattlers football, but Blizzard football. And it allowed us to stay connected. And I think a lot of that translates into a lot of the incredible stuff our social media group is doing now too, and just how the posts engage in different elements with the players, like pronounce the Wisconsin cities, or they painted Easter eggs, right? People, especially at a level like this, where you can have a player come into your school, you can hang out. We have the fifth quarter after the game. You can hang out on the field, win or lose. You come down on the field for 20 minutes and just chill, throw footballs.
Is that every game?
Every game, win or lose. Yep. Because, like we said, you're so close to that. Like, that player is tangible.
Yeah.
outside of maybe seeing him shop somewhere, is Aaron Rodgers tangible, right? It just makes us different, and we have to represent that in a different way, right? Yeah. And that's not that those people aren't bad human beings, and again, they're incredible at what they do. They're just not as accessible. To your point, you literally, we win or lose, we're hanging out for 20 minutes after the field, sign as much as we can before the buzzer goes off, and we have to clear the field so the rush can change over, right? Yeah. So it's just a different. It's just you have to present yourself different, and we find different ways. And ironically, through a pretty crappy time on the planet, we found something cool that allowed us to connect in a different way, where we were all feeling blah because we were on the back of the first playoff game in 7 years in 2019. All the momentum, attendance at the high. 2020 happens. 2020 comes back, and we have this pod seating garbage where you're 8 feet away from the closest person. It doesn't feel like Blizzard football because you're not on top of the field and you're separated from your friends. And then we've truthfully rounded the quarter to 2022, and we're like, man, I wonder if we can get it back. So 3 or 4 games in, attendance was great. Hit the laser show night, and it was really emotional. Like, yeah, we can get it back, and we can still do it even better because it's so affordable that people wanted to gather again, right? And it was just, I think a lot of it resulted because we stayed connected, and even to teachers and principals, we had relationships. Even in the seasons where we couldn't work with them, we still checked in every now and then and say, hey, we'll be back next year. Don't think we're going anywhere.
Well, this has been great.
You're out, Ryan.
I know you need to get going
I'm
soon.
good. I love this. I am good. I'll tell the next person I'm sorry.
Before we wrap up, we have our pop culture corner, where we pivot and chat about just what we've been watching, and I want to start off by talking about Werewolf by Night. Have you guys seen that?
Have not yet.
Okay.
No.
So Werewolf
Disney
by
Plus,
Night,
yes.
Disney Plus. Yep. It's in the MCU, even though it's very tonally different in a different era. As I understand it, it's going to tie into the MCU films at some fundamental level. But the film was decent. It was entertaining. What I found more interesting was the behind the scenes, the documentary. Okay. So if you guys have watched any of the MCU stuff, and like a lot of times, especially for Star Wars and MCU, they'll have the making of they'll either have it as a episodic thing like in Star Wars, or they'll have like a little mini movie that they did.
Right.
Well, the Werewolf by Night behind the scenes was actually, so the director of the film was Michael Giacchino. Giacchino. I apologize. I'm screwing that up. I should know that better because I'm Sicilian and I should know those names. But anyways, he's also, this was the first thing that he directed. He has been the composer for a lot of stuff. He's done like the Star Wars or the Star Trek 2009 J.J. Abrams films. So like anyone that knows the soundtrack to that.
Sure. Yep.
And a lot of different films, but he's mainly a composer. This was the first film that he directed. Yeah. And his brother, I apologize, I don't remember his name, but his brother is a documentary filmmaker. And
send you a card.
It was interesting that, like, because his brother did the documentary, the behind the scenes documentary, and he is a documentary filmmaker.
Interesting.
And so his way of shooting the behind the scenes documentary was completely different than any of the other MCU stuff that I've seen before.
I've heard that about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you've ever, like most of it is just fairly straightforward, like interviews with the people, always the same. And they're well produced, don't get me wrong. But his documentary was completely different. It was very much about the journey of Michael going from a kid who loved movies to then compose movies to then directing his first film. That was the story. And so I feel like watching Werewolf by Night is 1,000 times better if you watch the behind the snes on it.
Which one should we watch first?
It's definitely worth watching the film first because otherwise you're going to get too many spoilers in the and it definitely is just like any good film. There's mystery, and then all of a sudden the mystery's revealed. So you don't want to spoil that part. But that if you've seen the movie and haven't seen the behind the scenes, definitely check it out. Yeah. But it's worth that experience alone. So I highly recommend that.
Are there any other? I'm trying to think of any other composers that have made that shift. That's a very drastic shift
from music.
Yeah, from music into directing. I wonder if there's anyone else that has made that.
You don't see, I've seen some that have moved from to acting.
Yeah. Sure.
But as directing, it's but a lot of times you'll see actors that then become directors. But
at least
fairly
that's
common.
That's still in the same vein. I feel like that would be an easier switch than Hans Zimmer being like, you know what, piano's been fun, but I'm gonna take a crack at. I've seen them do it. Let's take a crack at it. That's an ambitious move. That's
sure.
I applaud it.
And just hearing that, but when you watch the behind the scenes, you see like, oh, this was like always meant to be almost.
Interesting.
So
cool. I'm excited to watch
it. The story is really fascinating.
All right. Nice plug. Nice plug.
So then the next thing I want to talk about is Andor. So who's seen Andor?
Not all the way through.
Yes. So we're still working on it.
All right.
Still
So
have caught some of it.
I try to do all spoiler-free feedback in whenever we talk about this stuff, but Andor is such a fascinating thing. I feel like as I've understood it and seen like the viewership, it's still very underviewed compared to a lot of the other content that's out there. So highly recommend watching it. But Andor is what I feel Star Wars needed. It like Star Wars has been so stuck in a rut of like even like I was excited with Mandalorian. I'm like, sweet, they're getting away from the Skywalker saga, and then spoiler alert, Skywalker just keeps showing up. But with and then Book of Boba Fett, I don't know, it's some logic issues in there.
I haven't dove into Andor yet because I am a huge advocate for Rogue One.
It's a very slow burn at the beginning. The first couple episodes, I was like, all right, the thing that's interesting is it tonally shifts like 4 times throughout the entire thing.
Sure.
It starts off very much with like a manhunt style film. Then it turns into like a heist film. And then it turns into like a psychological thriller. And then it ends with kind of like a war story type thing.
Oh.
So you go through these.
It ends in a rom-com. It takes a real shift.
Boom.
Real shift.
Totally didn't expect that. But what they do so well, especially in that psychological thriller element, is they make the Empire actually have be a legitimate threat. Like, listen, when George Lucas made the first Star Wars film, you can't build an entire universe in one movie. You have to make it a hero's journey. That's what Star Wars was, and that's fine. But as they've been building off of that and telling more stories, it just almost felt like they're another hero's journey, another hero's journey, another hero. And you could argue that Andor is maybe a bit of a hero's journey, but what they did and how they portrayed the Empire in it made it feel like, there was obviously the parallel that the Empire was Nazis. That was very obvious in the wardrobe and in all that kind of stuff. But we never got to see the psychological side of things. Like, if you actually, look back at the history of World War II and you see, like, obviously there's the major battles that happened and those type of atrocities, but there was obviously like the camps and all the other horrible things that happened to the people that's the evil that was really there. World domination, lots of people have come and gone and trying to do it, but what made the Nazis so horrible is just the level of like focus they had. Like, we are the dominant species, the dominant race, and everybody else doesn't matter. And they really pulled that off in Andor and made the Empire have that level of evil that we hadn't really seen before. It was implied because of the visual tone of the Empire, but it wasn't actually realized. And seeing like people at a ground level, like how badly they were being treated and everything like that. So I definitely think Andor is something that Star Wars needed if it's going to continue, because it was starting to fizzle quite a bit.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with Star Wars as a whole, though, fundamentally, is that, like, I joke, it's like, imagine we're telling the story of the human race, and then all we do is keep telling the story of World War II. It's like, and then this is what happened before World War II, and this is what happened right after World War II, and then somehow Hitler came back, and
God,
but
surprise Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. So. Anyways, Andor was really solid. I'm hopeful they will continue in this direction, and it gives me, again, with every time I watch a new Marvel show, I go into it with like, I don't need whatever show that they're showing me, and then by the time I'm done with it, I'm like, that was so tonally different that I'm like, great, this feels fresh, even though it's set in the same universe. Like, Loki versus Miss Marvel. I mean, polar opposites set in the same universe, and that's, again, like, I feel like Star Trek has done a decent job of that. There are other, when you have such a large library of different types of shows, they can't just be the same thing tonally. And Star Wars hasn't shifted enough from that. Now, Andor is definitely grittier.
Sure.
So, if you go back to what made Star Wars great in the first place, I would argue, okay, it was a hero's journey, fun adventure, and then it's gotten kind of more depressing over time.
Sure.
Andor does a good job of it. I do think that we need some levity versions of Star Wars, like Solo. For as much as people got irritated with it, I'm like, Solo was the closest thing to the tone of the original Star Wars to me. Then,
no, that's true.
But it had its other issues. But anyways. You guys have any other contributions?
I think we've talked about this before. I enjoy getting to play back in the sandboxes of worlds that I enjoy. Harry Potter, Star Wars. Anytime that you bring these back, it may be tonally different. But I think you brought up a good point of like Star Wars has just been telling the same story of that World War II, and so hopefully this gives them the freedom to say, you know what. There were other things happening in this in this universe that exists with the technology and the characters and the planetary discoveries and all the things that have happened at this point. What's a different story that we can tell? What's the one that we can tell outside of the Jedi? What does that look like? And so I think hopefully this gives them a little freedom. If they keep, I'm assuming they're going to keep it going. I don't think they're going to be.
I believe they officially announced they're doing a season 2 of Andor.
Cool. Great. So, yeah. So I hope this encourages them to be able to play some more and give us more time in the world, because it's a fun world to be. I know I'm probably going to get hate for this, but like even Jar Jar Binks, sure, horrible, but it's fun to have something, and if I have to put up with Jar Jar Binks to be in the Star Wars universe, I'll do it.
Yeah, for as much as the prequels had such giant problems in the storytelling and scripting and all that kind of stuff, George Lucas did a really good job of bringing more variety to the world.
Yeah.
If you look at like the sequel films, they just kind of really kept telling the same thing over and over again and really didn't add as much variety. So, that has to do with the lack of planning. We've talked about that before, and how it's. The fact that they didn't plan out the sequel trilogy in its entirety beforehand, it baffles my mind in so many levels. But anyways, anything you've been watching that you like to share?
I'm probably late to the party, but I'm through Picard finally. We were talking about that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. I'm excited for 3. And it's funny that you mentioned a composer thing, and this is not spoiler-esque, but in the last episode of season 2, you actually hear the First Contact theme, which I thought was brilliant.
Oh, nice.
Brilliant.
So
vaguely for a couple seconds, and I'm a music guy. High school musicals, played in pit orchestras my entire life. It was brilliant, audio-wise. So, yep.
So I know a lot of people did not like season 2 of Picard. There are, again, plot thread issues, all that kind of stuff. And even some tonality issues. I appreciate where they took the characters. The Q story arc I thought had an interesting finality to it, which I really enjoyed. And I think again, Picard exists as one of those kind of secondary or tertiary stories of like the Mandalorian next to the Star Wars. So like that's what I view Picard to me for. Now that said, Picard season 3, and I talked about this on the last podcast. I am so incredibly excited about season 3.
Yeah. Actually, you're the reason I binged 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So I hadn't watched it yet.
Yeah,
so,
and
until Walmart, which I can say that word, gave me a free Paramount Plus subscription.
There you go.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah. Sponsor? No, I wish. Let's get that.
Hear that, Walmart?
You're on the clock.
Court.
Get on it.
This is on you.
Get on it. But yeah, the season 3, I'm the most psyched for because of the showrunner. We talked about last week, which you need to get caught up on.
I do.
More 12 monkeys. I was about to say 24 monkeys. That's double the monkeys.
Double the
That's a bunch of monkeys in a barrel.
12 monkeys being run by Terry Matalas, and seeing his passion for Star Trek. And then, you mentioned the soundtrack.
Yeah.
So they are going, if you follow Terry Matalas on Instagram, he shared a little of the composing of it, and they're pulling back James Horner and Jerry Goldsmith, and just all of those great composers from the movies, and they're bringing it all into Picard. And they just announced too that they're going to be continuing story arcs from Voyager and Deep Space Nine.
Cool.
So I'm having a hard time keeping my expectations in check, but like,
I will say that Andor may take a back seat for me just because, like, growing up, Willow is in my top 5 movies.
Yeah.
Well, like, Kilmer as Bart again. I am a huge Willow fan, and I haven't dove in yet, but I'm so looking forward to Willow. I may watch it.
Oh, nice.
Andor.
that's one that
It's out
slipped through the
now,
cracks
so,
for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know Sean is a
Love
huge
Willow.
fan of Willow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I love Willow. Yep.
I may get hate for this. I haven't even heard of it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm familiar with it, but
Yeah.
I never watched the movie, and now with the show
Yeah.
coming out, I want to go.
Yep.
I'm going to go back
Watch
and
the
watch
movie.
it.
Okay.
It's so good.
Nice.
I think Kilmer might be the only actor anybody knows in the original movie, but it's an outstanding movie with old school sword fighting. Before sword fighting was as gruesome as it is now.
Sure.
It was cool. Yeah. Really cool.
All right. So we've basically added on a whole nother podcast
Done
just in
today,
this.
clocking
But
out.
I do have one question for
Yeah.
you. Just wrap it up. We're coming into the Christmas season. You said you're a big music buff, so I have this one for you. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you? Why do you think Die Hard is a Christmas movie?
There's so many Christmas references. Like,
Tony,
it's
what do you
just-
think?
It's a
Is Die Hard a
Christmas
Christmas movie?
No,
I mean,
watch it with
that
kids,
becomes
but
into a large debate as to, like, is Star Trek Generations a Christmas movie? Because
it's had scenes and
yeah,
filmed in
so
there, right?
is the period that a movie is set in? I mean, is Iron Man 3 a Christmas movie? Like,
That's true, actually. Yeah.
You know, like all of those movies that are set during that time and that era, and having that driving theme. To me, what makes a Christmas movie is the core of the motivation of the film Christmas related.
Yeah, it's not about Christmas. Like
Sure.
Home Alone 1 and 2 are
Sure.
about
Right.
Christmas.
Elf,
Yes,
those types of movies are related to the Christmas theme. Now, Die Hard is right on that threshold of a lot of the motivations wrap around Christmas. It happened on Christmas. He's coming because of it. There's a Christmas party, all that kind of stuff. So those did drive the core elements of the movie. The message isn't Christmas related, but Christmas is driving the theme of it.
Here's what sold it for me, and I didn't watch it until 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
I was way late to the game, and fortunately avoided all the spoilers.
Good.
But what did it for me, when you listen to the score of that movie, it is Handel's Messiah only. And they just do it in different variations.
Yep.
So you can't take one of the most iconic Christmas songs, put it underpinning the entire movie, and then say, no, this isn't a Christmas movie. So that's why I wasn't sure if you had picked up on it, like, as a music nerd.
That's how I knew Sean before. It's just, jazz performance major in high school.
Yeah.
Like, my CD binder at the time,
Yeah.
and I'm old, was soundtracks, musicals, you name
Yeah.
it. Right? There's music is something different.
Right.
It can change a movie or it can wreck a movie.
Yeah.
So,
So leave it in the comments. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And then go out and watch some arena football.
There you go. Awesome. Where can people go to find out more information about Green Bay Blizzard?
GreenBayBlizzard.com.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for joining
Or
us.
come to Edge VR Arcade during season.
There you go.
There we go.
Tickets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We
know
have
it.
a lot of big things happening,
Yep.
so we're excited. Stay tuned. We have a lot of a lot of big partnerships happening with the Green Bay Blizzard. They're big fans of the arcade, and
Yes.
we're trying to get some players out, do some competitions, let you guys play against some of the players. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Cool.
Thank you guys. This
Video
was a
games,
blast.
not football. You don't have to worry.
Yeah, do not wear a helmet and suit up on the field on game day.
All right. Thank you guys.
All right. Have a good one.